Did.
Hello?
The recording has started.
Hello, hello?
Muted. Unmuted.
Okay, I'm back. Let me just make sure that the video is on. Last thing we don't want is that to happen. Okay, I'm ready to go. Must be really important stuff that we're having a little obstacle. Okay. We began last week the Dvar Malchus of Parshas Balak, which was Shavasa Tamuz, the 17th of Tamuz, that came out on Shabbos in 1991 in Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Farbrengen, the Sikha, the talk of that Shabbos is just out of this world. The main idea that we learned last week, and this is part 2, so the last one, you have it on YouTube, you can look it up, worth listening to, and this is the second half. So what we learned is that the Rebbe is developing the idea that since Shabbos, the Tisha B'Av is coming out on, not Tisha B'Av, both Tisha B'Av and Shavasa B'Tamuz come out on Shabbos, that means that we don't in any way have the negativity of the 3 weeks. We only have the positive idea of the 3 weeks. Because Shabbos dismisses the external and reveals the pnimius. And the pnimius of the 3 weeks, l'chatchila, from the very beginning, is all about the tov, the good, the building of the Beis Hamikdash. It's hinted to in the fact that Yud Zayin is gematria tov. So we're looking just at the good that's in those times, and the fact that these days will become a Yom Tov. The Rebbe proves it from the idea that Shavasa B'Tamuz is considered both a fast day, it's also considered a Yom Tov. He brings what the Gemara says. Karoloi Tzayim, you call it a fast day, and you call it a Sasam V'Simcha, you call it a day of holiday. And the Gemara answers, it's referring to 2 different times. When there is Shalom, it's a Yom Tov. When there's no Shalom, it's a Tzom. But still, how can one day be these 2 opposites? You have to say that even, it's not just 2 different times, but even at all times, it has within it the inyan of Tzom, but it also has the inyan of Yom Tov in it. So the pnimius of it is like we always know, every one of these fast days, they're a Yom Ratzayin, they're a day of goodwill, it's a day to get closer to Hashem, it's a day of connection. And once that will be revealed, it will be a Yom Tov. But, until the world has reached its perfection, we're still dealing with the shells, with the externals, with the outer elements, and therefore we experience the darkness of these days. But when it comes out on the Shabbos, when it starts on Shabbos, the 3 weeks, when Shavasa B'Tamuz comes out on Shabbos, Shabbos dismisses the fast. So it dismisses the fast, it exposes, draws forth, and highlights, and brings to the surface the Yom Tov Shaboy, the future Yom Tov. And the Rebbe explains that these Yom Tovim are going to be the bigger Yom Tovim than ever. And then he goes on to explain how it's connected both to Parshas Balak and it's connected to Parshas Pinchas, because in Parshas Balak, that's when this year it also came out on Parshas Balak. Balak speaks all about the nevuas of the Geula, not stam about the Geula and about Melech HaMashiach, but it also, Balak, the whole idea of Balak is to take a negative thing and transform it. Bilam wants to curse, and his curses become transformed to blessings, which the whole idea that we're talking about, the Shavasa B'Tamuz, which seems to be a negative day, is transformed to a very positive day. And then he goes on to explain in Parshas Pinchas, you also see all these inyanim. Yeah, Pinchas is Eliyahu, and then you have the counting of the Jewish people, which is related to the future counting that's going to be when Mashiach comes, because we're going to be counted again. And then it speaks about dividing the land of Eretz Yisroel, which is also what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, and then it speaks about the Yomim Tovim, the Karbonos, the Musafs, and Shavasa B'Tamuz and Tisha B'Av are going to be a Yom Tov. That's the idea that we learned last week, and the Rebbe even added an interesting idea that Parshas Balak, in a sense, being that Balak doesn't come out in the 3 weeks, it usually comes out the week before, and even in a year like this, Parshas Balak it's the 3 weeks, but not the 3 weeks, because you technically don't start any of the halachis of the 3 weeks till after Shabbos. So that means that Parshas Balak has an element of geula to it that's unrelated to Golus. In other words, when we look at Mashiach, this is very important for the continuation we're holding right now, when we look at Mashiach, we can look at Mashiach as someone who comes to fix a problem, or we can look at Mashiach as just a time of incredible greatness. So he says that that's two Mashiachs. In other words, and both of them are true about Mashiach, about the Geula. There is the idea of the Geula where it's coming after a time of suffering, because we're in pain, because we're in darkness, because we have hardships, because we have tsaris. We need a Geula to take us out of those, like we say in the Agad, the Mishibud le Geula, to take us from the Shibud, from the enslavement to the Geula. So then it's only like relative to the suffering. But then there's another inyan, and that is that Mashiach, even if there would have never been a Galus, let's say we would have remained in Eretz Yisrael, and with David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, and continued, we would still strive for Mashiach, because the world of Mashiach and the greatness of Malchus Beis David and the godly light in the world and the terms and the leader of the Jewish people is going to grow to much higher levels than ever before. So it doesn't really need a crash, even just an ascent higher and higher to the highest possible level. That's Mashiach. And the Rebbe says that's the difference between the Mashiach of Parshas Pinchas, which is in the middle of the 3 weeks. That Mashiach we sense that there is a Golus and the Geula is coming to fix the Golus, as opposed to in Parshas Balak, where it doesn't. When Balak speaks about, when Bilam speaks about the progress and the greatness of the Jewish people, he doesn't mention any fall and any negativity. He is only speaking of one level of greatness and another level of greatness and continued levels of greatness until we come to Mashiach. So that's the chiddush that Rebbe says he wants to apply it to this year. When we have this year, and this year, 2019, the Tafshin Ayin Tes is the same setting as the Tafshin Nun Aleph. That's why I've been mentioning so many times. All these inyanim that we were given that year is so potent and so powerful and so applicable to this year, because it's the exact same setting. So in this setting, we don't even have to begin to experience the 3 weeks besides the halachas that are there. Okay, the halachas is the halachas. You're not allowed to take a haircut. No, what can you do? No, you can't chas v'shalom dismiss the halacha. But other than that, the attitude is not even that there's Usually it is, okay, there is a Churban Beis HaMikdash. There's a strong, like the Rebbe, like the famous video, the famous Sikha from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe is talking about that a Yid is looking and sees the Beis HaMikdash being destroyed. And we know that anybody any generation, the Beis HaMikdash was not rebuilt in his days. It's as if that it's being destroyed in that generation. And the Rebbe says over there, when you're a Yid, even if he's a cold Jew with a steinediger heart, he has a heart made out of stone, he sees it burning, and he's gonna stand by, not do anything. The Rebbe then yells, Keravel time, turn over the world. But even in that, what's the nekuda? Because you can't bear the pain, you can't bear the destruction, you can't handle it, and that's usually the idea. In other words, without Chassidus, the general attitude to the 3 weeks, let's just rehash the suffering. Let's sit and mourn and mourn again and again and again, and that's what we're supposed to do. Mis'abel al churboinai. I mean, there are sources to that. I'm not saying it belonged. It wasn't wrong, because that's what Jews did for thousands of years. But that's what they were doing in the depth of Galus when we weren't close to the Geula. As we get close to the Geula, as we're going to see in today's part, it's got to change. But the chiddush of Chassidus was, don't be busy mourning and don't cry over spilled milk. Clean it up and go buy a new bottle of milk. And if you don't have money to do it, save up money to buy a new bottle of milk. That's what I'm saying. So the same as with the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. Do something to fix it. That's always been the attitude, even in Chassidus, even by the Rebbe. Learn about the Beis HaMikdash, build it, be involved in construction, do all these inyanim. The chiddush in this sikha that we're talking about in Tafshin Nun Aleph is a whole new chiddush. It's not striving for the Beis HaMikdash and doing because you can't, because you're frustrated with the gullahs. No, you're totally beyond it. You're just sitting there and marveling at the greatness of the Geula, something so wonderful, something so awesome, something so incredible, and you just want it and you can't wait to have it. It's like waiting for the day of your wedding. Right? You're excited. That's it. It's nothing bad. It's not that it's so terrible being in my parents' home. It's so terrible being single and I want to be married. No, it's just something, it was great being single and growing up and having a life, and now it's great that I'm getting married, and that's even greater. Right? So that's the idea. There's no hergish at all in the idea of Galus. Okay, that's what we learned. That's what we learned last week. And now the Rebbe continues. He says, in Siv Zayin, that's what we're holding. And all the above mentioned, there's a special ilu, he says, in this year, in Tafshin Nun Aleph, I mean, again, I'm saying this year, I mean the year that Rebbe said the Sikha in Nun Aleph in 1991, again, which is the exact same setting like in the calendar like this year. So regarding all the other years that the 17th of Tamuz comes out on Shabbos. But what the Rebbe is going to say about 1991 is absolutely applicable from 1991 and onward, because the Rebbe wasn't talking about just that year as an independent year, but as that year as a opening of something new, a new era entering. Okay. He says, let's first preface this. Just like we explained earlier, that Shavas B'Tamas has a dual meaning. It has an outer layer of darkness, but it has an internal core of light and futuristic energy of freedom and the geula and redemption and so on and so forth. And Shabbos exposes it. So the Rebbe says, let's put that aside a second. And it said, in addition to this idea of Shabbos, but even just as the years progress, even when Shabbat B'Tamas doesn't come on Shabbos, let's look at just the idea that when Golus is progressing, as the history progresses, let's say, and we're getting closer and closer to the Geula, so the closer we get to the redemption, the more we sense the Geula, the less we sense the Golus. Because we're moving out. The Rebbe doesn't give the mashal over here, but we obviously all appreciate a mashal that we all know, but it's a very real example. When you're going through a tunnel, for those who remember the tunnels in New York, you go through the Battery Tunnel, you go through the Lincoln Tunnel, especially if you sit in traffic, you feel very claustrophobic. You're closed into that dark tunnel. And as you're moving, you're wondering, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? As you're getting closer, you start seeing light. Even if you don't see the opening, you actually start seeing a little light. And when you're seeing the light, you're at the end of the tunnel. And that's the idea. As we're creeping up closer and closer to the end of the exile, we start sensing the good. That's the whole idea of Chassidus. It's already the light of the future. You can hear already the song of the Geula. And therefore, the nature, the Rebbe says, of the 3 weeks begins to change. As mentioned earlier, instead of focusing like Jews have been focusing on the mourning, on the ashes, on the sadness, on the crying, on the avelus, instead we're focusing on the anticipation, on the excitement. And the Rebbe says this is founded on the Gemara. This idea. One might say, the Rebbe doesn't say these words exactly, but I'm adding that. One might say, this is a nice story, but who says it has any validity? Maybe, api halacha and api Torah, we have to hold on to the darkness of these days as long as we can hold on to them. And only when the Geula will come, we'll be freed from it. But till then, api halacha, we have to be very sad. We have no right to lighten the mood. The mood in these days, we have no permission to do that. Api Torah, it's a time of mourning. But the Rebbe says no. It says in the Gemara that the Gemara already addresses what we spoke earlier. That the Geula is that it says at certain times it calls the Yud Zayin Tamuz a day of fast, and at certain times it calls a day Sasa v'Simcha. So the Gemara differentiates. The Gemara says like this: in a time when there is peace. Peace meaning the ultimate peace. The time that there's already Mashiach is here, so it's going to be a Yom Tov. The time that there is persecution, in the words of the Gemara, it's called Gezeras HaMalchus. There is persecution, religious persecution, and in that case, it's a time, it's a fast day, and it's an obligatory fast day. Everybody has to fast. But in the time that's in the middle of it, the Gemara says, there's no peace yet, but there's no more persecution. That means that the Golus has lightened up. Then it's voluntary. If you want to fast, you can fast. You don't want to fast, you don't have to fast. Again, that's not an accepted idea according to halacha, which means according to halacha, you're not allowed to say and argue that today there's no more Gezeras HaMalchus for the last 50 years in a sense. There's no more persecutions, religious. And in Russia there was, and Rebbe is going to mention that about Russia actually later, that from 1990 there's no more religious persecution in Russia. So basically Jews are free to practice Yiddishkeit all over. There's no Gezeras HaMalchus anymore. So I wouldn't say Api Halacha that you don't have to fast, even though I know there are some people who do take it to this extreme. But obviously we would need a Psak Halacha from Rabbanim to do that. But in any case, you see the concept. I'm not saying, the Rebbe is not saying this regarding, I don't think so, regarding to practical halacha, but he's definitely saying this conceptually. The concept exists that when there's no Gzeiras Malchus, which means that the Golus is beginning to lighten up, to loosen its grip, its iron grip, it's on the Jewish people, the attitude of the day, it's a voluntary fast. I mean, it gets lighter. And as the Rebbe is explaining, it's not just lighter, it's already, you can start seeing in these days already the light of the Geula. And he says that, and we see that this is another area where we can see this manifest. He says in the general theme of the Chodesh Tamuz, where mamish today, we're entering now into the last day of Tamuz. So it's a good thing to talk about, because if there's any doubt what Tamuz is, let's make sure we can clarify Tamuz. Tamuz has been 2 months of the year has been the month of sorrow amongst the Jewish people. 2 months of the year, Tamuz and Av, these are the dark months. But Tamuz was always like what the towering day of Tamuz was always the fast day. So the fast day of the 17th of Tamuz was what set the tone and gave the flavor for the entire month of Tamuz. However, the Rebbe says, since in the last generation, which means in the last, now in our case already 90 years, where the Rebbe was talking the last 70 years, the nature of Chodesh Tamuz has changed in that we have a big yontif, we have Chag HaGeula of the Friediger Rebbe. And the Rebbe says it's not a private celebration just for Chabad Chassidim. First of all, it's not a private celebration for the Friediger Rebbe. First of all, it's a redemption. It's a redemption. You can imagine the Friediger Rebbe himself, when it came Chodesh Tamuz, what was he thinking about? Of course, he never forgot for 1 second the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, but a year after his liberation, he felt, this is the month that the Eibishter did for me this big miracle. I was liberated. But the Friediger Rebbe wrote a letter that it's not personal. It's not only about him. It's about all the Jewish people. First, he says all Machavevei Torah, all those who care about the Torah, and then even adds all Jewish people, V'gam, and also all those who call themselves Jews. Now, by the way, I just had an interesting insight on Shabbos when I was looking at the Sikha, that the reason the Friediger Rebbe uses V'gam, and also, again, this is parenthetical because my own thought, that because the Friediger Rebbe is referring to, first he says it's a Yom Tov to all Machavevei Torah Seinu, all those who love the Torah. And then he says V'gam, even to the Jews who are so alienated from Yiddishkeit to the point that their Judaism is not essential to them, at least in their minds. They look at it as a nickname, as something unimportant to them. So what is this V'gam? You should have said it. It's to everybody. What does he differentiate? Is because he's talking about 2 generations. He for himself, the 6th generation, good. The Friediger Rebbe was a fighter for observance. So all Jews who cared about observance, all observant Yidden cared about the Friediger Rebbe's liberation. But when the Friediger Rebbe says V'gam, he's referring to and also for the 7th generation. That's going to be the next generation, when the Rebbe is going to become Rebbe. And then the fact that the Friediger Rebbe was liberated is actually going to impact the entire Jewish world, because someone is going to start caring about the non-religious Jews, non-observant Jews, getting them to do mitzvahs, and involving them as well. I mean, the Friediger Rebbe started it, of course, and all the Rebbeim cared, but I'm saying in the level that the Rebbe did it, no one did it before. And that is the idea of V'gam, that also he's referring to the next generation. So therefore, the Rebbe says, now going back to what the Rebbe is saying in the Sikha, it comes out that therefore, since we have Chodesh Tamuz celebrating a Geula, and to add to that, not only are we celebrating, and the fact that it's a Geula, the Friediger Rebbe, it's already, it's in a sense overpowering Shavasa B'Tamuz. But more than that, it's not just the Geula, but it's shaykh to the Geula, to the ultimate redemption. Because as the Gemara says, that all Geulas, every redemption, is connected to each other. That's why we say the bracha of Goel Yisroel. In the 7th bracha in Shmona Esrei, the Gemara says, is Re'ena B'anyenu, all talking about Geula. And the Gemara says, because the Geula is going to come in the 7th year. B'matzah Shemitah, the Mashiach comes. That's why. So the Gemara says, but hold on, Re'ena B'anyenu is not talking about Mashiach. Re'ena B'anyenu is talking about a personal situation. I have an ingrown toenail, it's hurting me, and I need a Geula, meaning I need a, that's a refuah. Okay. I'm saying, I don't know, I have a bill to pay, and I can't pay it, and that's Baruch Aleinu, I'm sorry. I don't know, something that's pressing upon me. It's a personal situation. Someone is after me. And so what does it have to do with the Geula? So the Gemara says, Shem Geula, it has a name Geula, which means all Geulas, you see from there, are all interrelated. So the Friediger Rebbe's Geula is connected to the coming of Mashiach. But even more so, the Rebbe says, the Friediger Rebbe's Geula allowed and enabled and brought about the last and final project, which is going to lead up to the Geula. What's the last and final project? Hafatzas Maayonis, spreading the wellsprings of Chassidus, which is the ideas of Einod Milvadoi, that God is, there's none but Him, and Achdus Hashem, which is all as the Mashiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, that leads us to the redemption. Since the Friediger Rebbe's Geula enabled this, it's the last project to bring the Geula, of course, without a shadow of a doubt, that's a major development and a major progress towards the redemption. So what do you see from here? What is all this saying to us? The fact that we have Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tamuz, which is called Chag HaGeula, in the Chodesh Tamuz, is an indication of the thought that we were saying earlier. The closer we get to Mashiach, the nature of this time changes. Like we see, when it comes Rosh Chodesh Tamuz, we're not just thinking of 3 weeks, Shavasa B'Tamuz, we're also first thinking about big Farbrengens for Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tamuz, Chag HaGeula. And in a sense, it's already overshadowing the 17th of Tammuz. That's the idea. And the Rebbe continues, and he says the explanation of that is, as we said earlier, since based on all the simanim what Chazal say about the generation of Ikvus the Mashiach, of the footsteps of Mashiach, the last generation. So the Rebbe says, based on all the simanim, our generation is definitely the last generation of the Golus, and therefore the first generation of the Geula. And therefore, when the time of the Churban and the Golus arrives, when the period, which is the 3 weeks period, which starts on the 17th of Tammuz, it is emphasized, going back to what we said earlier, not the fixing of the darkness, because we're not even seeing so much the darkness anymore, only the good of the time, the 3 weeks, it's a hachana to Mashiach. That's what it is. You're not seeing like a destruction that you need to fix. You're just seeing a stepping stone to the Geula. It's like I gave the mashal on Shabbos. It's like when you're standing on the narrow, even though the 3 weeks is narrow, you're not changing the idea that it's Bein Hamtzarim, but it's like when you're getting onto a plane and you're on that, what do they call it, the ramp, that closed ramp. It's claustrophobic standing on that ramp, but yet you're aware that you're getting onto the plane. You're getting onto the plane. And I'm talking about usually there's some excitement of getting onto the plane. Once you're on the plane, when you get off the plane. But it's that excitement, I'm getting onto the plane already. And that's what the 3 weeks are. We're a ramp onto Mashiach's wagon. That's what we have to feel. An introduction to Mashiach. In a sense, we have to be excited in the 3 weeks. Mashiach is coming. That's when we're thinking about it. 3 weeks. Hachana l'Geula. That's the idea. The Rebbe's telling us we have to be excited during the 3 weeks. I'm not saying you have to hit the music and dance. Al pi Allah, you're not allowed to do that. But inwardly, this is the idea. Be b'simcha, ready for the Geula. Fine. This is true, the Rebbe says, Bichlal, as we're getting closer to the Geula. All of this adds more. The Rebbe says, how much more so? When not only we're already so close that we're doing the last project to bring Mashiach, which is spreading Torah and mitzvahs across the world, and spreading it even, as we spoke in the earlier sichos, from Chatzi Kader Atachten, in the lowest parts of the world, and as we spoke earlier, from bottoms up, from the lowest part of the world, was reaching the entire world, which we're in the middle of that work. The Rebbe says, how much more so when we've completed that work? Awesome. We've completed already the work of the last project. And the Rebbe says like this, which even at the beginning of this tekufa, the tekufa we're talking about is the last and final period of work that's going to be involved in America, and from America fixing the entire world from the bottom up, okay? Spreading Yiddishkeit and Chassidus across the campaign, the final campaign to bring Mashiach, which the Rebbe sees as starting in 1940. Okay, when Friediger Rebbe comes to America. He says, at that time, the Friediger Rebbe already said then that what? La'alta l'tshuva, li'alta l'geula. You know, all we need to do is a quick tshuva and we're ready for the geula. And the Friediger Rebbe testified that we finished everything, all we need to do is to polish the buttons. And in a sense, it's interesting that Rebbe is saying it over here in the name of the Friediger Rebbe, that we finished already polishing of the buttons. I don't remember seeing that ever before. And all we need to do, because the Friediger Rebbe also said, Amdu hachin kulchem, we have to stand ready to greet Mashiach. L'kabel pnei Mashiach tzidkenu. So when we are at the siyum, at the conclusion of this tekufa, hear these words. I'm going to quote from the actual Sikha. Bevadai ubevadai, definitely, twice definitely. Leloi kol safik v'svek svek, without a doubt or a shadow of a doubt. Shekvar egi azman ha'geula, the time of the redemption has arrived. And like Chazal say, kol kitzin, all the end times have passed it already. But here's the chiddush. But Chazal say that you still need to do tshuva. Everything that Rav says, and the Gemara says, Rav says, everything is ended, but now it's dependent only on tshuva. But the Rebbe adds here, and again, that we did tshuva already also. And not only did we do it, but we did it already b'shleimus. We did it already perfectly. And when we say we did tshuva b'shleimus, doesn't only mean that non-religious people did tshuva, and they came back to observance. He says, but even observant Yidden, and even tzaddikim. Because one of the things that's going to be the chiddush of Mashiach is going to accomplish, is that the Zohar says that the tzaddikim are going to do tshuva. And the Rebbe says that we've accomplished too. That Mashiach brings the tzaddikim to do tshuva, that too has already been accomplished. How? Because there's the Mashiach spark that's in every Jew has caused Yidden already to tzaddikim to do tshuva. It's interesting. Because when you're reading this Bepashtis, the Rebbe seems to say, like, how can I say that Mashiach already made Yidden do tshuva if Mashiach isn't here yet? What do you mean Mashiach made it? So the Rebbe says, because there's a spark of Mashiach in every Jew, and that spark of Mashiach makes the tzaddik do tshuva. But, again, the Rebbe doesn't say this, and this is my own little thing. I think the spark of Mashiach can only be activated by Mashiach himself. Mashiach comes to activate the spark of Mashiach that's in every Jew. And therefore, if we're saying that the spark of Mashiach that's in every Jew has already accomplished that tzaddikim have done tshuva, that's because Mashiach has activated. That means Mashiach is here already. That idea. But that's deriving it from here, and I don't have to do that in the Sikha because the Rebbe does it already for me and for all of us a little further. So therefore, but what's the conclusion? Since, if this is the case, so we're standing so close to the Geula Amitis Vashlema, definitely, again, the Rebbe is building the case that we have to completely dismiss, eradicate any trace of sadness and darkness of these days. Instead, what's emphasized is only the good of Yud Zayin Tamuz and Ben Amtzarim. That this is bringing the ultimate redemption, Geula Amitis Vashlema. Good. Now the Rebbe says in Sif Ches, he's building unbelievable. He says, Chiddush noisif b'dereinu zu gufa. In our generation itself, the Chiddush b'shana zu, in this year, again, in 1991, even more the Rebbe says that in 1990 or in 1989, and so on and so forth. What's the big Chiddush of Tafshin Nun Aleph? He says, in addition to this, that we're standing so close to the Geula Amitis Vashlema, he says, this year, Mamish, Shnas Neflos Arenu, it's the year that we've seen wonders. The year, hear these words, that in it will be fulfilled what Chazal say, it will be fulfilled. The Rebbe is not saying a wish it will be fulfilled. What Chazal say, as the days you went, not Chazal say, what the Pasuk says, as the days that you went out of Egypt, of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. That means we have to expect huge wonders that are going to happen that year. And not only it will be fulfilled, the Rebbe says, it has been already fulfilled, the Neflois, the wonders. That are testifying. Hear these words. This is one of the most explicit statements anywhere. That this is the year, that I was saying, that this is the year, Nun Aleph. Hashana shemelech HaMashiach niglo boy. This is the year that Mashiach will be revealed. Now it's interesting that this phrase, Shana shemelech HaMashiach niglo boy, is a phrase taken from the Medrash that's talking about a war that happens in the Persian Gulf, or a threat of war from the Persian Gulf, and the relating to Persia and so on and so forth. And the Rebbe kept on saying the entire year that that's the simanim, that what was happening with Iraq and the Persian Gulf War, we call the Persian Gulf War, and Eretz Yisrael was threatened, and all the people were afraid that Saddam Hussein would God forbid, use chemical weapons on Bechlal and on the Jewish people, on Yidden, on Eretz Yisrael, and so forth. So the Rebbe then kept on pointing out that that's because it's the Shana Shemelach HaMashiach Nigla Bay. Fine. But then the Rebbe adds more. Not only is it Shana Shemelech HaMashiach Nigla Boi, which can be the whole year, Va'ad L'Shah, the time has actually come, the hour that Melech HaMashiach Ba, that Melech HaMashiach comes. Now what is the Rebbe referring to? There are two, this is both in Yalkut Shemaini and Yeshaya, two consecutive midrashim, two consecutive pieces. One says Bishana Shemelech HaMashiach Nigla Boi, the year that Mashiach will reveal himself, and the continuation of the medrash is Bisha Shemelech HaMashiach Ba. And the difference between the two midrashim is that in the first one, other than it says the year, and the second one it says the hour. In the first one it says that the Eibishter tells the Jewish people, don't be afraid, Mashiach is coming. But in the second one, it says that that Mashiach himself tells the Jewish people, he stands on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash and he tells the Jewish people, don't be afraid, Mashiach, that Mashiach is, Higias Magolaschem, time of redemption has come. So the Rebbe is now bringing these two midrashim and saying that we have, like, it's no more, we're no more hoping. We've already seen the simanim that this is the year that Melech HaMashiach Nigla Boi, that Melech HaMashiach reveals himself. But the chiddush over here is that he adds another medrash. And this one is a medrash based on a pasuk in Shir HaShirim. The pasuk in Shir HaShirim says, Hinei zeh ba, he is coming. So the medrash in Shir HaShirim says that we're pointing with our finger to Melech HaMashiach. Who is the Hinei zeh ba, Koil Doidi, the voice of my beloved? Who is the beloved that we're pointing with our fingers? That Hinei zeh ba, zeh Melech HaMashiach. That's Melech HaMashiach. So the Rebbe says that too is happening this year. It's all the simanim that's happening. And here is where he adds, not that Hinei zeh ba means he has come, not he will come. And the Rebbe uses these words, shekvar ba, that he has come already. This is the year that he has come already in the past, which is really, really powerful. The Rebbe is basically saying that in Tafshin Nun Aleph, Moshiach has revealed himself and Moshiach has already come. And therefore, the Rebbe says, because that has happened, again, I think if you're reading the words carefully, that's what's being saying. I don't think it's an interpretation of mine. I think if you're reading it carefully, that's what he's saying. That in the pasuk it says, Bashakvar ba, that he has come. And therefore, the Rebbe said, what's the consequence? That we're already standing, not we're hoping to stand, we're already standing on the threshold of the beginning of Yemais HaMashiach. But to be able to stand in the days of Mashiach has to be here, because only Mashiach pulls us into Yemais HaMashiach. So if Mashiach didn't come yet, we're hoping, we're looking around. Maybe he's coming, like the Rebbe would say in many sichos. Maybe he'll come through the window. Maybe he'll come through here. Maybe the door opens up. Mashiach walks in. That's all before. Here he says he came already. And therefore we're already standing in the beginning of Yemais HaMashiach. Al-Saf, on the threshold of the beginning of the Geula. But it's only the beginning. And now, what is the Rebbe's hope? The take it from Miyad, that's already the hope. The hope, the Rebbe is going to tell us what the hope is. The hope is, take it from Miyad, hamshechasa ushleimusa, to finish the download. It's like an example. It's like it started downloading. We want it to complete the download and to be completed. It's shleimus. But the beginning happened already. Why? Because Melech HaMashiach kfar ba. So the Rebbe is not pointing to these midrashim as a time of a segula. If we're lucky, Mashiach might come. He came already. And to add to this, he doesn't say it here, but to add to this, and we saw that already in the Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel Sicha, and the ones that we learned this year, we've already studied this, where the Rebbe says that the Mashiach that's calling and says Higias Mangul Aschem, his calling on the Beis HaMikdash is happening from New York, and it's happening from 770. It's happening. That's why it's from Gag Beis HaMikdash. So Kfar Ba, he already came. The Geula is also starting, the Rebbe says. And how can it be if Mashiach came? How come? Okay, then we shouldn't make anybody sad. Chas v'shalom, the whole point is to make besimcha. How come we still have tzaras? How come we still have these crazy things happening? Now in the 3 weeks, another crazy thing happened. So l'chura. And the answer to that is, there's no answer. That's the answer. The answer is there's no answer. But Mashiach came already, but the Geula is not completely here. And that's related to what I told you from the Sfas Emes, that Bias Mashiach l'chud, Mashiach comes and the Geula l'chud. The coming of Mashiach doesn't mean we have Geula. Obviously, we have the starting of the Geula, but we don't have the completion of the Geula. We're waiting for the completion of the Geula. But the Rebbe is saying, if that's the case, how in the world, if Mashiach came already? It's like Moshe Rabbeinu came already to Mitzrayim and told the Jewish people, Melech HaMashiach came already. Obviously, the Rebbe is talking about himself. There's no other Mashiach that he was referring to. And he says he came already. If that's the case, what else is there to do? To mourn? You're still mourning on Shavasa B'Tamuz? You're still mourning in the 3 weeks? It's 3 weeks. Halacha didn't change until we have a third Beis HaMikdash. But what should you do? You realize in these 3 weeks, Kach and Mashiach, get excited, get completely, fully involved in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi and the excitement of the Geula. The Kivin Shekei, and the Rebbe says, Bevadai, that in this year, Yud Zayin Tamuz, and in the 3 weeks, Ubein Abtzarim, B'Shana Zu, is Mudgish Inyan HaGeula. Not only a achana, here the next words, not only a preparation for the Geula, because I was wrong what I said, not only a preparation, Ela Sha'Geula Ba B'Poyel Mamish B'Yom HaShabbos Kodesh Zeh. The Geula actually comes. No, because we're holding where we're holding, we have to live with that sense every moment that the Geula is coming today, Mamish. Even before we get a chance to begin the 3 weeks, the Rebbe says. And therefore, the days will turn over to Yomim Tovim. I would say that Rebbe deposited us at this place, and there's no walking back. This is the place where we've been placed. The door closed behind us, let's put it this way. We are already on the other side of the door. If that's the case, what's the struggle? Because in essence the door closed behind us, but that's mitzad the emes. But mitzad our hergish, our feeling, the Rebbe used the term al safa geula. You're standing at the doorway, and whenever you're standing in a doorway of a house, you can either consider yourself outside or you can consider yourself inside, and that depends which way your head is turned. If you're turned towards the house, that means you're walking in, then you're inside. If you turned your back, I'm sorry, this doesn't say it in the Sikha, but I'm just deriving this. If you're looking towards the back, if you're looking back, then you're outside. Which way you're looking? You're looking forward or you're looking backwards? So we have to look forward. You have to look into the world of Mashiach. How are you going to look into the world of Mashiach? By studying about Mashiach, and then you will be inside. If Chas v'Shalom you want to say Gimel Tamuz and sit in the morning and this happened and now we go to the oil and we come at this and we have to figure out what else we need to do as Lubavitchers outside of Mashiach and Geula and see this and hope that one day you sit like that. Of course, that's the place where a person's thought is. That's where you are, especially if you're standing in the threshold, especially if you're standing in that space, depending which way you're standing, facing inward, you're in the Geula, facing the other way, you're outward. So now we can continue back to the Sikha. I'm sorry, that was just my little insertion. Let's go back to Perek Tes. So from this it's understood that in the days of Bein Hamtzarim of this year, in the 3 weeks, there needs to be a powerful shturim. There needs to be mamish a miyuchet, a special drive, to learn in Yana Geula Mashiach and Binyan Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. That's what we need to do. It is known, the Rebbe says, the minog for many years, that in the days of the 3 weeks, we add in Limud HaTorah regarding the Beis HaMikdash. Based on what the Medrash says as follows. Come and see. When the Eibishter showed Yecheskel the tzura of the Beis HaMikdash, Hashem told Yecheskel and Avi, go tell the Jewish people what the Beis HaMikdash looks like, relate to them the vision that I've showed, because Hashem showed the vision of the third Beis HaMikdash to Yecheskel, and they should be embarrassed of their sins, and they should measure, the tachnit, the plans. So Yecheskel says to the Eibush, to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the world, the Jews are in exile. What do you mean? They're still in Golos, in the land of our enemies, and you're telling me to tell the Jewish people Tzuras Habayis? What are you telling me to go say that to them? Are they able to build it? Wait till they come out of Golos and I'll teach them afterwards. Like you always have these Yidden who say, we want Mashiach now. When the Eibishter will do it, that's when we'll deal with it. Now, who are you? Yecheskel says the same argument to the Eibishter. He says, let's wait. We'll come out, then we'll worry about a Beis HaMikdash. And then I'll go tell them. The Eibishter says to Yecheskel Anavi, because my children are in exile, my house will remain, will We will halt construction of my house. Liyabinyan beisi batal, that the building of my house is going to be on halt. No, but how can we build it? So the Eibishter says, reading in the Torah is as if you're building it. So study it and learn it. I'm going to consider it as if you're building it. Okay, so based on this, the Rebbe said it became the minhag. Again, this is what the Rebbe found. The Rebbe brought out this medrash, and the Rebbe made this the minhag for the Jewish people. That what do we do during these 3 weeks? We learn about the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Rebbe says, based on what we've said earlier, that in this year particularly, it's emphasized only the good of Yud Zayin Tamuz. Because we're already standing at the threshold. So this year, he says, our avoid of learning Hilchos Beis HaBchira about the Beis HaMikdash has to be completely different than it was done in the earlier years. And the Rebbe says twofold. I'm going to just wrap this up quickly. The Rebbe says in two ways the learning of the Beis HaMikdash, again, all this applies to this year as well, because it started from that period. That when we learn Hilchos Beis HaMikdash, two inyanim. Number one, our attitude, our feeling in it should not be because our hearts are filled with pain and anguish because of the destruction. And we're trying to overcome that by thinking about rebuilding and thinking about, like a person's house has fallen apart, and then they come to the place and they're already, in order to bring themselves, to give themselves some hope, they start talking about building. But really, they're trying just to overcome that dark space. The Rebbe says that's not this year's learning. This year's learning is already, we're past that. Now it's simply because we're anticipating and we're excited about a third Beis HaMikdash that is much more spectacular than the first two. It's not just that we need to replace or get back something that we're missing. We're actually reaching for something we've never had, something so much greater. And that's what we're filled with, yearning and aspirations for this magnificent holy temple of the third Beis HaMikdash. And that's the attitude in learning. That's number one. Number two, that when we're learning it, we don't feel like we're learning something that's in the far off distance, like we're learning halachas that are not negeya, but actually we feel that we're learning something that is applicable to us immediately. Since the Geula is here immediately, we have to feel as if the Geula is happening now, and it's happening immediately. And the Rebbe says the same, this actually is the same like we're speaking about regarding learning Geula and Mashiach. Same idea. We shouldn't learn in Yana Geula, again, just like we do regarding the Beis HaMikdash, is also regarding the Geula, Mashiach in general. We shouldn't learn about Mashiach as a segula to bring the Geula. That too, but not just that. The reason we should learn about Mashiach is, that, as I mentioned earlier, that we have to start living. Mashiach is here already. We're in the beginning of Yemaisa Mashiach. And because we're in the beginning of Mashiach, we have to start living the Geula. And to start living the Geula, we learn about it so we know how to live. Then it influences our mind, and from our mind it will influence our emotions, and from our emotions it will translate into our behavior, and we will live completely in the days of Mashiach. Okay, I got till Sif Yud, and I don't want to hold anybody longer. I do want to say that in Sif Yud and in Sif Yud Aleph, the Rebbe says something really powerful about learning Yana Geula Mashiach, how important it is, and because the Rebbe continues to say, and I want to make a very important announcement. I'm leading up to that. The Rebbe continues to say that we're finding that there is a lack of absorption in my message. This is what the Rebbe is saying. I'm feeling that I'm hitting a blank wall. That's what I'm hitting. I'm hitting a barrier. I'm not getting anywhere, the Rebbe is saying. I am telling you Geula is here already, and you guys are not getting me. You're not. He says it's very, very hard. The Rebbe is simply saying, I'm not saying those words. I am having a hard time. He's saying that we see b'poil mamish that people are not accepting it. It's hard to be poil by Yid. They should feel that Geula has begun. So the Rebbe says, and he gives reasons why, explaining why. And he says the Eibishter could help the situation out, but we don't have to wait until the Eibishter helps the situation out. We can do something. What should we do? The Rebbe says, when you learn in Yana Geula and Mashiach, it's going to schlep you into the Geula, because learning Torah changes a person's nature. So in order that we should be able to come and actually enter into the space of the Geula, we must learn in Yana Geula Mashiach. It will actually transport us. And this is the remedy for our generation. This is what we're talking about, right? This is what we're supposed to be doing right now. Every single one of us has to enter into Mashiach space, and we cannot do it without learning. So I've announced, and I'm announcing, you might have seen it on the WhatsApp, and please, 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 I'm begging you, really, I've never said that before, to please spread this in every WhatsApp group possible. Send it out in any way and even speak to people. We're going to be having a full day learning this coming Sunday on Mashiach and Geula. It's going to be awesome. In Maayon Yisroel over here, physically you can come, and it's going to be it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. But in addition to that, it's also going to be on live, so you'll see it there's a way to tune in live. It's literally going to go from 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, till 9 o'clock at night. We'll have a full day, powerful classes, shiurim, all kinds of inyanim. So please join us and let's do it globally. Let's make it happen. So, and meanwhile, let's hope that we will do it already in a special room adjacent or part of the third Beis Hamikdash. May it happen now.